Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. The series premiere has never been regarded as one of the Star Trek franchise's strongest assets. For all its brilliance, Star Trek often stumbled when it came to introducing its shows, with first episodes that took time to find footing. However, there's one undeniable exception. A pilot that saw a Star Trek show debut not just confidently, but with genuine brilliance. Of all the many Star Trek TV shows, only one launched with a pilot so strong it transcended typical franchise growing pains. It wasn't simply a solid sci-fi outing or a promising start to a new chapter. It was, and still is, one of the finest pilot episodes in television history. That episode was Star Trek: Deep Space Nine's Emissary. 32 years on, it remains a masterclass in world-building, storytelling, and character introduction. More than just the beginning of a new Star Trek saga, it's a television pilot that can stand proudly on its own, surpassing even the high standards of the franchise's legacy. The 1993 Star Trek: Deep Space Nine series premiere Emissary wastes no time in signaling its ambition. The episode opens with Commander Benjamin Sisko Avery Brooks caught in the chaos of the Next Generation's Battle of Wolf 359, one of Star Trek's darkest hours. From there, Sisko reluctantly accepts command of the newly liberated space station Deep Space Nine. What follows is an intricate weaving of politics, spirituality, and grief. The Bajorans, finally free after decades of Cardassian occupation, look to Sisko to guide them into a fragile future. Meanwhile, the mysterious Celestial Temple and its prophets draw him into a journey unlike anything in Star Trek before. Far from a routine space adventure, Emissary confronts trauma and destiny head-on. This Star Trek series premiere succeeds as a gripping drama because it balances spectacle with deeply human stakes. Sisko's pain over the death of his wife isn't glossed over. It becomes central to the narrative, making him a uniquely grounded captain from the outset. Unlike earlier pilots, which often leaned on formula, Emissary feels lived in, with characters shaped by history and loss. In just 2 hours, the Deep Space Nine premiere introduces a sprawling ensemble cast that feels instantly memorable. Major Kira Neri's Nana Visitor bursts with passion and resentment. Odo Rene Auberjonois embodies mystery and skepticism, while Quark Armin Shimerman provides both comic relief and moral complexity. Even Jadzia Dax, Terry Farrell, and Dr. Bashir Alexander Siddig establish strong dynamics that would grow richer across the series. Beyond characters, the premiere establishes tone and setting with remarkable clarity. DS9 is not a pristine starship exploring the unknown, but a scarred station at the edge of contested space. Its grittier setting fosters political intrigue and moral ambiguity, setting it apart from the Next Generation's optimism. It was a bold pivot, and Emissary executed it with conviction. 3 decades later, the brilliance of the Deep Space Nine series premiere lies in how complete it feels. It's both a compelling story and a blueprint for 7 seasons of groundbreaking storytelling. Very few pilots manage to achieve both, but Emissary remains one of television's rare examples. When stacked against other Star Trek series premieres, Emissary stands head and shoulders above. The original series began with The Man Trap, a decent but unspectacular story that lacked the franchise's eventual sense of identity. It wasn't a bad start, but it felt more like a monster of the week than the beginning of a phenomenon. The Next Generation's encounter at Farpoint suffered from uneven pacing and awkward character introductions. While the promise of Jean-Luc Picard Patrick Stewart was clear, much of the cast felt stiff, and the central mystery wasn't strong enough to sustain a 2-hour runtime. Compared to Emissary, it's an awkward first step rather than a confident stride. Voyager's Caretaker fared better, with a strong hook stranding the crew in the Delta Quadrant. However, it still leaned heavily on tropes and technobabble, with character arcs that took years to fully develop. Even with its memorable premise, Caretaker lacked the thematic depth of Emissary. Fast forward to modern Star Trek. Discoveries, The Vulcan Hello, and Battle at the Binary Stars launched the streaming era with cinematic spectacle, but also polarizing storytelling. While Michael Burnham's Sonequa Martin Green was compelling, the opening notes of Discovery struggled to balance serialized drama with coherent world-building. By contrast, Deep Space Nine introduced complexity without sacrificing clarity. Strange New Worlds came closest, with its pilot being an upbeat return to episodic adventures anchored by Captain Pike Anson Mount. While warmly received, it was deliberately designed to echo classic Star Trek charm rather than reinvent the wheel. In doing so, it lacked the daring reinvention that made DS9's beginning truly groundbreaking. The Deep Space Nine series premiere doesn't just hold up against its peers, it redefines what a pilot can be. Instead of playing it safe, Emissary took risks, mixing serialized storytelling with mythology, exploring religion in a sci-fi context, and grounding its lead in raw personal grief. These choices set the tone for DS9's legacy as Star Trek's most ambitious series. 32 years later, every new Star Trek premiere is still measured against Emissary. It remains the rare pilot that's not just effective, but exceptional, a blueprint for how to launch a show with confidence, vision, and lasting impact. There are moments in television that transcend time, the ones that remain as powerful decades later as the day they first aired. For Star Trek, a franchise built on bold visions of the future, one premiere episode still stands tall more than 3 decades later. The debut of Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. First airing in January 1993, 32 years ago, the episode Emissary didn't just introduce fans to a new corner of the galaxy. It redefined what Star Trek could be. Unlike anything before it, Emissary dared to embrace complexity, conflict, and spirituality in ways that continued to feel ahead of their time. Today, looking back with the perspective of 3 decades, it is clear why this premiere has not aged but matured, like a fine vintage from Chateau Picard. Unlike the original series and the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine didn't open with the promise of starships charting the unknown. Instead, it dropped viewers into the aftermath of a brutal occupation on a dilapidated space station orbiting the planet Bajor. The tone was darker, the stakes more personal, and the universe far more morally ambiguous. From its very first scene, Emissary set itself apart. We meet Commander Benjamin Sisko not as a confident explorer, but as a grieving widower trying to shield his young son from the trauma of war. The emotional gut punch of Wolf 359, a battle already infamous in Next Generation lore, gave audiences an immediate sense of loss and vulnerability. Starfleet officers weren't untouchable icons here. They were deeply human. This wasn't a series about a pristine starship crew venturing boldly into the stars. It was about living on the frontier, dealing with the scars of war, navigating politics, and reconciling with faith and destiny. The premiere made it clear. This was going to be Star Trek, but not the kind we had seen before. What truly sets Emissary apart is the way it weaves spirituality into science fiction without losing credibility. Sisko's encounter with the Byron prophets, mysterious wormhole aliens who exist outside linear time, wasn't just technobabble. It was philosophical, emotional, and spiritual all at once. The scenes in the wormhole remain some of the most profound in Star Trek history. Through the prophets, Sisko confronts his grief, forced to relive the moment he lost his wife. The prophets don't understand linear existence, so Sisko must teach them about humanity, loss, and perseverance. But in the process, he also learns about himself, about why he has been unable to move forward, why he has been living in that moment. This spiritual encounter elevated the episode beyond simple science fiction. It dared to explore questions of purpose, destiny, and belief. It turned Sisko into something more than a Starfleet officer. He became the emissary, a figure of religious significance for Bajor. By intertwining science fiction with faith, Deep Space Nine expanded the franchise's storytelling canvas. Another reason Emissary stands as a masterpiece is how fully realized the characters felt right out of the gate. In just 90 minutes, the audience is introduced to one of the richest ensembles in Trek history. Benjamin Sisko, not a perfect captain, but a man torn between duty and personal pain. His arc is grounded in growth rather than perfection. Major Kira Nerys, a former resistance fighter, fiery and distrustful of Starfleet. She's not interested in diplomacy. She's interested in protecting Bajor. Odo, the enigmatic shapeshifter with a strict sense of justice, already shrouded in mystery. Quark, the Ferengi barkeep who becomes an unlikely moral compass, showing shades of complexity far beyond comic relief. Jadzia Dax, a science officer with centuries of experience through her symbiont, bringing wisdom wrapped in youthful energy. Dr. Bashir, naive, ambitious, and eager to be on the frontier, already clashing with reality. In Emissary, none of these characters are stereotypes. They're flawed. They clash. They disagree. It feels like real people have been dropped into extraordinary circumstances, and that sense of authenticity is why audiences became so attached to them. Most Star Trek series take a season or two to find their political footing, but Deep Space Nine established its central conflicts immediately. Bajor is newly liberated from Cardassian occupation, its provisional government fragile, its society divided between tradition and modernity. Into this mess comes Starfleet, invited but not universally welcomed. The first episode makes it clear. This isn't a utopian Federation world. Bajor is scarred, suspicious, and at risk of collapse. Meanwhile, the Cardassians, through the cunning presence of Gul Dukat, remain a shadowy, ever-present threat. The episode lays the groundwork for a series that would blend politics, religion, and morality in ways no Trek before it dared. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay with us.